Hi, hello, and a very, very good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on which part of the world you're checking in from. I hope you're all having a fantastic day so far. Thank you so much for taking time to be part of our What's New webinar series. Before we jump into today's session, I would like to do a very quick audio and video check. So if you can hear me loud and clear, and if you have no issues in viewing the screen, please drop in a yes message in the chat box provided. Hello, Dan. Hello, Shetty. Good morning. Good morning, Richmond. Hi, good evening from Malaysia. Hi, hello. Thank you so much for checking in. Good morning, Muhammad. All right, thank you so much for your confirmations. We have people checking in from Malaysia. We have people checking in from Vietnam. That's beautiful. We have Saudi Arabia. Hi. Hello, hi. And here I am. Quick introductions before I jump into today's session. Hi, this is Sharda Murthy. I am a technical expert in ADSelfService Plus. I will be your presenter for the day, and I am happily sitting at home, checking in from India, working remotely. I hope you're all having a fantastic, beautiful day so far. I really hope that you're all safe and well and happy and taking good care of yourself. Hi, we have a lot more check-ins. So I'm going to very quickly read all this. We have people checking in from Saudi Arabia, Maldives, UAE, Ghana, Pakistan. Good afternoon. We have people checking in from Philippines as well. Amazing. This is so beautiful to have you all here together while we're all sitting remotely at different parts of the world and, connecting virtually through this platform. Extremely happy to be here today. Yes, so a little bit about this particular series. The What's New series is a customer focused series that we'll be talking about, like the name suggests, what's new in this particular product that falls under the Managed Engine IAM category, right? And today I will be walking you through how you can get the best out of ADSelfService Plus. So before I jump into today's session, I would like to try and understand how many of you are existing customers of ADSelfService Plus. Have you had any experience of working with the application? Have you tested the application? Do let me know by dropping in a yes message in the chat box. If not, you can drop in a no if it's something that you're evaluating. If it's an application that you will be evaluating and you're here to understand the application better, drop in a no message so that I will know what part of you are familiar with the application and who amongst you are not. Thank you so much. All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to try to not pronounce your names because some names are very difficult for me to pronounce. But in case I do, and if my pronunciation is wrong, please excuse me. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, Yusuf. Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you, Richmond. Thank you, Tortellini. I hope that's the right pronunciation. Thank you, Muhammad. Thank you, Nubzir. All right, perfect. So what I'm going to do is not only am I going to walk you through how to get what to do to get the best out of ADSelfService Plus in today's session. It's a simple, straightforward 35-minute session. I am also going to be recording this session live. I will be recording it. I have turned on the recording. So if you have any questions that you'd like me to address about the application, in particular use cases that you are looking for, please feel free to make use of the Q&A tab to drop in your questions. I will be able to access them live while doing today's session and also be able to answer your questions live. And this session, like I said, is being recorded. So if you have a busy schedule, if you have to disconnect because of your schedule, please don't worry, just drop in a message before you disconnect so that the session's recording reaches your inbox. All right. Quickly jumping into the agenda put forth in front of us today. Most of us joining us today are from the Asia Pacific zone and the Middle East. I believe that's the time that's convenient for all of us. Probably a very few of you joining in from other parts of the world. So talking about Asia Pacific and Middle East more predominantly today, we all are we all have been working remotely or, continue to work remotely since late 2019, right? December 2019, but things became crazy somewhere between February and March 2020, and that's why it is titled as New Times and New Norms. What I mean to say by that is now not only do we have to focus on what's great for users in your organization when it comes to password security, what you can do or how you can achieve seamless password resets, you also have to take into account remote working and how things can be easy for your remote workforce. All right. We do have a lot of people checking in from different parts of the world. Once again, this question is more out of curiosity. What part of you, or what part of your organization or nation is continuing to work remotely? Let me know by dropping in your comments. This is, to try and understand if you are still working remotely, if you are working, going to office and checking in on periodic days, or if your entire workforce is back to work. Let me know by dropping in your messages in the chat box. Here specifically talking about the southern part of India, or India predominantly, we are still largely working remotely. The relaxations are slowly coming in, but when it comes to the security posture, we have been up and tight since last year, since February 2020, more specifically talking about end users having a seamless experience of working remotely. Yes, Paul, I made note of your message. I will ensure that the recording reaches you. Thank you, Abdul. Thank you, Richmond. Yes. So coming back to talk about remote working, one important aspect of remote working is to ensure password security or user identity security, which is predominantly what I will be addressing today, or what I have been talking about more in the recent year, a little more than a year now, right? So we have a couple of you who are working remotely, but also going to office occasionally. We have some of you who have moved to the office, all right, and I believe that comes from a place where your country is in a good place, and I'm happy to read that. Mainly working from office, all right, but we are fluid. All right, great. I am glad to know that, a lot of you are checking in from parts of the world where the situation is much better. Perfect. So today I'm going to start by talking about conditional access. It's important to talk about conditional access, especially at this point of time, because the application decides for itself what is great for a user before they log in and access critical information, get access to their systems, applications, data. So that's where we are going to start. I will also be talking about enforcing modern multi-factor authentication for your VPN logons, and this is especially to protect your remote workforce. I will be talking about enhanced password policy, how you can improve password policy for your remote environment, while also enabling password policy for your hybrid infrastructure. And the good part of all this is that, with ADSelfService Plus, we have, if I can say, refurbished how the application looks. We have a sleeker, more streamlined, flat user interface right now. So we will be exploring the application today. All right, I have a couple of more answers. In Saudi Arabia, only last year until May, there was the total lockdown. Now here it's normal working in office. All right, perfect. All right, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing all your messages, and it really means a lot when you connect, when I'm able to connect with audience, because especially with remote webinars, sometimes it gets to you, right? You are constantly talking to a computer or a monitor and you have no idea if the message is getting conveyed. So it feels amazing when you guys, respond back. Thank you so much for that. Thank you every single one of you who took time to drop in a message. Jumping to the session plan for the day. So what I've done here is I'm going to quickly pass on the ADSelfService Plus online demo for all of you to explore. I do understand that a couple of you are, getting used to the application, just getting started working with the application. So I believe that this will be of great help to you. Click on the demo link that I've passed on to you in the chat box. It's a live actionable demo. And yes, you do not need any credentials, just hit administrative login. You will be able to log in and explore the application. I also want to quickly let you know that ADSelfService Plus has a fully functional 30-day free demo, no restrictions, all right? A free license for 30 days with no restrictions. So if you are looking to explore the application after today's session, you can feel free to do that as well. These are just quick reminders that I wanted to pass on before I jump into the session plan for the day. So what I've done here, like I said, is I am working with domain of my own. I have set up a test domain for today's session. I have created dummy users, and I'm going to walk you through how things look from an end user's perspective. So I have my VPN configuration up and running. I am going to take a remote desktop connection. This is basically to show you or give you a real-time live demonstration of how this application works from an end user's perspective. And I have a planned agenda put forth in front of me today, but if you do have any specific questions that you want me to answer, please let me know and I will take time to answer them. All right, so Warwick, I will give you answers for how you can integrate ADSelfService Plus with Azure Active Directory and utilize it for multi-factor authentication. Yes, we do support Office 365 or how it's called now, M365. So logging into ADSelfService Plus as an administrator. Let's start with conditional access. Let's start with the first level of access. So what this application basically does is it allows users to, take care of their own password management chores. And when I say password management chores, you delegate password self-service to users in your organization. You allow them to take care of their own account unlock process, allow them to reset their own passwords, do that securely, log into multiple single sign-on applications. But when you hand over all these permissions or privileges to end users, you need to ensure that the right person has right access to the right machine and at the right time. Especially with remote working, this is critical because users log in from different IP addresses, from different connections, public, private, not so secure connections as well. So you need to ensure that, people who have access to critical data in your organization, people who simply have access to machines, to your VPNs, to, pretty much any feature that ADSelfService Plus delegates, have a secure access. And this is where conditional access steps in. You configure the conditions where you set the business hours, you set the geolocation, you set a device from which they can log in from. You also can choose to set networks based on IP ranges, all right? And allow the application to decide whether the user requires full access, restricted access, limited or increased MFA to access password self-service, to log in and access endpoints, and also have access to both on-premises and cloud-based application. This is a great virtual representation of how this particular application works. I am going to very quickly show you the test setup that I have up and running. So walking you through the configuration as well. So let's say I have test APAC Middle East that I'm creating today. I am not going to restrict based on IP addresses, but let me say device-based restriction, all right? I have picked the computer object that I can allow access from. I can also, fine tune this based on device platform. I set the business hours. So one country or one region that I know works at different business hours is definitely the Middle East, right? So the Friday is an off for most of you, so you can choose to, tweak this and allow access to Sunday, right? Pick business hours and allow access, simple drag and drop, easy to use. So Friday and Saturday is off, let's assume. So Sunday to Thursday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., you allow access, which means you also set the time zone. Right now, I am working from the Indian Standard Time, right? So I won't be able to tweak the time zone, but by default, it's automatically enabled. You can also choose to, tweak time zones if you are looking forward to doing that. If you work with multiple ADSelfService Plus instances, in that case, there's also an option to do it under the admin console. All right. I've also set the geolocation as India, but let me tweak this. Let's pick, I'm going to pick a couple of countries. So let's say Sorry about that. My cursor is playing with me today. So let me pick United Arab Emirates. All right, I'm going to pick Saudi Arabia, for instance. Where is Saudi? Yes, there. All right, so you can choose to fine tune the countries from which, this is just a simple example that I'm walking you through today. So you can choose to fine tune these countries. Pick Malaysia if you have users logging in only from Malaysia. If you have users logging in only from APAC, pick the countries in the APAC region from where you can allow access. All right, it's simple. What you do next is you determine the criteria. So let's say I have given an AND access to one. I'm sorry, and access to two. So people logging in from this particular device, these business hours, and this geolocation. It's a simple and or and not criteria. All right. So giving you another example of when, or not can kick in, or can kick in when you have to give access based on IP or location. All right, so that's an example for or. And for not, you can use not when you pick a particular location and say you do not want users to check in from this particular location. For example, I don't want users checking in from India. I don't want users checking in from Mexico. I don't want users checking in from China, right? So you can use the and or not and work with your criteria right here. Map it to your associate policies, pretty self-explanatory, hit update. All right, today I'm working with just one machine, one user. So I'm not going to show you how this works live, but what happens is the application decides for itself whether a particular user logging in from a particular device at a particular time from a particular location can have access to these self-service features. So let me just hit update. And I have a conditional access rule up and running. You can customize multiple rules and allow the application to decide whether users belonging to different policies. And when I say policies, these are based on OUs and groups that you have built, right? Users belonging to different policies, can they actually have access to self-service policies or self-service permissions you have delegated them access to? And conditional access is great because not only do you allow users to access certain features, you also allow the application to determine the risk factors before accessing these features. And once again, they definitely come in handy, especially while you're working with remote users. I am going to take time to answer a couple of questions. Okay, I'm going to talk about the integration with Office 365 and Azure very quickly. Can you please maximize your screen? My screen is at a maximum. I'm not sure what the issue is, Abdul. But I think with Zoom, you can choose to, work with your screen size as well. It's a drag and drop, I believe. I hope it's visible, Abdul. I'm really sorry. I just saw your message. What about M365 password synchronization? We do support M365 password synchronization. As a separate question, and I'm most likely jumping early to the presentation, I have some users that have zero access to a network other than the email, which I would like to enforce password changes, but other than a long-winded way via webmail, would like to see if they can change password simply. All right, to answer that question more easily, what email do they have access to and how would you like to enable a password change? Because with ADSelfService Plus, password changes or password resets for applications happen through the ADSelfService Plus portal. So if you can give me a little more insight on how you are trying to achieve that, I can give you a straightforward yes or no. Thank you so much for that question, Paul. Yusuf, if that user's desktop is hacked, what would happen and have passwords being stored on desktops? No, we do not store passwords on desktops. The easy way to prevent a user's desktop from being hacked, and we can only talk about prevention, right, is to ensure that you have multiple factors of authentication enabled. So even if the password is compromised, you can ensure that the other factors of authentication kick in. Other than that, you can also ensure that you have constant auditing of your infrastructure to ensure any suspicious activity is denoted. But in the case of when a user's desktop is actually hacked and you have determined that a user's account or desktop has been hacked, the best thing that you can do is quarantine the user first so that the hacker does not vertically or horizontally move within the organization, revoke permissions for the user temporarily, and then try to restore the user information. That is something that comes under backup and recovery when it comes to data loss or data theft. The session is being recorded, yes. Okay. For Exchange or Outlook, we have an option for you to integrate for a password reset. Just give me one quick second. So we allow you to reset passwords from the Outlook web access, but I want to let you know that this password reset also happens or is synchronized with your native Active Directory. So for your particular case of users not, having access to AD at all, that's going to be a task. Paul, I hope that answers your question. All right. Warwick, thank you so much. It's certainly not full screen. The screen follows mouse. Would be better to do proper full screen. All right, I'm going to quickly check that as well because I have been working with this setup for the longest time. I'm not sure if there is a screen restriction enabled in the recent times, but I unfortunately do not have an audience view with Zoom, so I do not know what your screen looks like, but I will also check to see if I can increase the size somehow and get back to you. Thank you so much, Warwick. Okay, all right. I see a lot of messages coming in, but if you do have questions, please make use of the Q&A tab. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all your messages. If you have questions, please redirect them to the Q&A tab so that I don't have to scroll through all your messages, but I'll take time to read all your messages towards the end of today's session. Okay, thank you so much, Abhijit. There is an enter full screen option in Zoom at the end user's end, at the viewer's end. Thank you, Abhijit. All right, I'm going to get back to all your comments very soon, but if you have any questions, please push them to the Q&A tab so I can specifically answer the questions. Since we are pressed for time, I want to cover all the topics given here today. All right, thank you, Jeff. What about if most users and PC is not on-prem? What is the best way to deploy on end users? Jeff, the easy way to answer that question is that ADSelfService Plus works on your native AD. It's built on your native AD. So it enables your on-premises to work better, which is where most of the limitations lie. I can assure you that you can achieve most of what was left out in the on-prem AD with your Azure itself. That is also something that Warwick pointed out. Yes, Azure has better capabilities than your native on-premises. And that is where ADSelfService Plus kicked in, because this application that we're talking about is over a decade old and was predominantly built to improve the experience of working with your native Active Directory. All right. Thank you so much, Jeff. Mohammed, my question is, there is no sync tool between on-prem and M365. Can ADSelfService Plus be used to synchronize? Password synchronization, yes, definitely. But if you're looking to synchronize information or data, then that's another tool altogether. Password synchronization, yes, ADSelfService Plus facilitates password synchronization between M365 and AD. I will walk you through a live example. I have a setup ready. Warwick, thank you so much. The ADSelfService Plus updates happen very frequently, yes, because we are constantly working on fixing our vulnerabilities, working on enhancements, taking into consideration all the feature requests that we get. So we have about 2 or 3 notifications that roll out pretty much every single month. And you can sign up for notifications. So I believe the administrator by default, or the email account for which you have signed up with the application for, by default receives all the notifications, all the releases, all the critical information. So you can choose to get it updated. Yes. All right. We are slowly moving out of forums. We do answer questions. We do interact with most customers. It doesn't get updated because the information is all going live on the web. We used to pass on tips and tricks and best practices on forums, but right now it's all going up on the website itself. So do check out ADSelfServicePlus.com. All the information is available and it's accessible. But about the notification, I will see if I can, manually ensure that you get notifications. Thank you, Warwick. All right, so I have definitely deviated from the agenda, but this is great. This is very interesting because I'm able to answer all your questions. Yes. Okay, very quickly moving on. I'm going to jump back to the agenda, spend about 15 minutes to walk you through the rest of the agenda, and I will extend the session to answer all your questions. I hope that's okay with all of you. So yes, ADSelfService Plus. Let's look at VPNs first, and then I will walk you through password synchronization as well. So I have a VPN setup up and running, but what I've done is, because of the firewall restrictions in my organization, I have deployed a test dummy setup on the cloud on my Amazon AWS and created or enabled VPN multi-factor authentication for the user admin. So let's see this in action. I am going to enable VPN log on with OpenVPN Connect. I enter the password. I am waiting for that to go through. And in the meantime, very quickly accessing my mobile device. Oops, looks like my password was wrong. I'm going to try that again. My first factor of authentication is my AD credentials. All right, I have enabled one-time passcode, time-based one-time passcode with Google Authenticator, Google app-based authentication. So that's my code. I click send. And in the meantime, while that is getting connected, and I know it will, I'm going to jump back to the configuration tab, move to self-service, jump to multi-factor authentication right here, to walk you through how you can enable multi-factor authentication for your systems and application. I've surpassed the idle time. Logging back in. Is it my glitchy internet? Am I still on? Yes, I am. All right, I just wanted to also throw a very quick disclaimer in case I get disconnected at any point of time, in case my audio or video is not clear, please keep me notified. Like I said, Zoom unfortunately does not have an audience view for the presenter, so I wouldn't know if the broadcast is seamless. That's a poor connection, sorry about that. I hope I have not got disconnected. Is the screen still visible? Is the broadcast seamless? Because I am experiencing really bad internet, I believe. Can somebody confirm if I'm still audible? Thank you, Abhijit. Thank you, thank you. All right, so I believe it's an issue on this side. So I'm going to very quickly retry. I tested the entire setup before I went live, but this happens. I am not sure what the issue is. All right. My Google Authenticator passcode again. Click on send. Okay, since this is taking a bit of a time, I'm going to quickly try to access the demo link to walk you through. This feels very unusual. Okay. Click on administrative login. No wonder. All right. I just got a notification that my VPN got disconnected. I'm sorry, my VPN got connected. So there we go. Yes. A secure VPN connection, in this particular case with 2 factors of authentication. My ADSelfService Plus, on the other hand, has decided to act up. I do not know if there's an issue with the internet or if there's an issue to connect to the server, but it's taking a bit of a time. So I'm going to very quickly make use of the demo console. I'm very sorry about that. And walk you through how you can achieve this. In the meantime, I'm going to hope for that to, fix itself. So logging in as an administrator. I jump to the configuration tab right here. On the left, you will see multi-factor authentication. So multi-factor authentication can be configured for the entire domain. It can also be done based on policies. So in the actual setup that we were working with, we had self-service policies built. And yes, you can choose to enable the authenticator that you would like to work with, biometrics, time-based passcodes, hardware token-based authentication. But the good news is you can also pick the level of authentication and the authenticators that you'd like to enable. So right now, to enable multi-factor authentication for your machines, for your VPNs, you need to, pick the level of authentication once again, pick the factors that you'd like to enable MFA for, MFA with, I'm sorry. Same holds good for VPN as well. All right, so pick the authenticator that works for you and you are good to go. In the meantime, I am going to try to open ADSelfService Plus again in incog. Better. So logging in, I will be able to show you how this is being configured in my end. So I have self-service policies that I'm working with, right? So for my multi-factor authentication, I have enabled different authenticators for different user groups. There we go. So marketing has a different set of authenticators. It also has a different set of levels of authentication as well. Jumping back to admin, I have enabled MFA for endpoints from a machine login right here. I can also choose to do it for password resets. But very quickly talking about password synchronization, I'm going to walk you through how you can enable password synchronization in the first place. Extremely simple and straightforward with your Office 365 infrastructure. All right, so I have Office 365 sync up and running. Enter your domain name, authenticate your identity, and you are good to go. And this is for password sync. For SAML, it takes a little more than just enabling single sign-on, right? But what we've also done is we have a help guide for each and every application, each and every pre-configured application that we have. So when I hit add application, there is a list of more than 100 applications that you see on the screen, and we have a stepwise pictorial help guide to set up for each and every single one of these applications. So click on personalize, choose to hit help. You can also access the help document from the ADSelfService Plus website. But since I already have a configuration up and running, I am going to perform a password reset. I click on change a password. I have enabled or embedded the reset password option right on my Gina CP right here. I click on reset password. I hit reset password right here. Enter the username. I'm going to enter the captcha. So for this particular user, I have enabled 2 factors of authentication. Let me access my Microsoft Authenticator. In the meantime, keying in my captcha. All right, the passcode just expired. It's a time-based passcode. So this particular method of authentication has been set as mandatory. What I'm also going to do is go ahead with security questions. Once again, these are just a random combination of authenticators that I'm working with. You can pick authenticators that work best for users in your organization. All right. Click on continue, and on successful user identity verification, I am then redirected to the ADSelfService Plus console, where I have an option to choose to synchronize passwords between my native AD and my on the cloud Azure infrastructure. Let's test this. All right, so I'm giving in a password that I know is weak. And I'm doing that deliberately because I have a custom granular password policy enforced. Let's see what happens. All right, so I have a check against all the complexity rules. I also have a particular rule that I've not met. I click on reset password. My bad. I'm giving in a very predictable, boring password. I will also reveal it to you shortly. So this is all I see right now, all right? But let me actually go ahead with the password that I know is strong. I click on reset password. And from my Genius CP, I will be able to successfully synchronize passwords. We did have a couple of questions around password synchronization, especially for your AD and your Azure AD. So if you're looking for a stepwise video of how you can enable password synchronization to help you achieve the same in your organization, please drop in a mail to me and I will send you a pre-recorded webinar. All right, I'm waiting for that to reflect. In the meantime, I'm going to take time to answer a couple of questions. All right, does AD Audit Plus support synchronization back from M365 to on-prem? If users reset password on M365 and changes password as it's back to local AD. Mohammed, ADSelfService Plus allows you to synchronize passwords between your on-premises Active Directory and M365. But since ADSelfService Plus works on your on-premises AD, the synchronization can take place only if it happens from the ADSelfService Plus console or from the native Active Directory. To answer your question, if a user resets their password on M365, it does not change the password in that local AD. No, that's not what the application does. It does the exact opposite. Thank you for your question. Paul, I'm going to get to your question real soon. That's going to take a couple of seconds for me to read through. Please stick with me. Thank you, Paul. All right. If you do have any more questions, please keep them coming. So yes, I have jumped back to my remote desktop connection right here. The password reset has been successful for both my native on-prem AD and my Azure. So that's something that I wanted to show you. Now let us log out as an administrator and log into ADSelfService Plus itself. So you did see that a granular password policy has been enforced. I am going to first log in as Sharada into ADSelfService Plus, or let's make it better. Let's take a remote desktop connection, because the password synchronization within ADSelfService Plus will definitely be seamless, right? But let's test it out. I'm logging into Sharada. I'm going to take a remote desktop connection, keying in the password that we just reset. I hit OK. What's going to happen now is, if my user identity verification is successful, my sincere apologies for the really bad internet. I'm not sure what's wrong, but things have slowed down in the last couple of minutes. All right, there we go. So I am redirected to the ADSelfService Plus console. So this is when I am trying to access my Windows endpoint, right? So I'm going to click on Microsoft Authenticator. I have enabled endpoint authentication. Once again, since this is a demo setup that I'm working with, I'm working with a combination of authenticators, different levels of authentication to show you examples. But I would definitely enable a minimum of 2 additional factors of authentication. It could be something as simple and straightforward as a fingerprint scan. It could be a hardware token-based authentication, and you can allow users to trust the machine up to 180 days, right? But what this does is ensures that the right person has right access to the right machine, to the right data. With just additional factors of authentication, you can, especially with your cloud infrastructure, you can prevent close to 99% cybersecurity attacks, user identity crisis-based cybersecurity attacks. So that is also something that I wanted to quickly pass on. I do have an access to my Windows machine with the password that I just reset. But what I'm also going to do is try to perform a change password once again from my native console. This is not part of the agenda, but I wanted to walk you through the password synchronization process. But coming back to change a password, Gina console, talking about granular password policy enforcer, I have a question for all of you. This once again is more out of curiosity. How many of you still work with the native Active Directory password policy for your on-premises infrastructure? Please let me know. I'm going to take time to read your comments in just a couple of seconds, but I wanted to show you the weak password that I'm setting, right? It is a password that looks long enough, checks multiple boxes right here, but when I display this, it's a very predictable weak password. Even if I increase complexity, it's still a weak password. And these are passwords that need to be rejected, because with your native application, with your default password policy, you can actually allow users to set weak passwords. Weak passwords like password at 123, username, admin, test, 12345, QRT, and more other predictable patterns. So once again, how many of you still work with the native Active Directory password policy that is more than 2 decades old, that is, that allows weak predictable passwords, but that also is the first and in most cases the only layer of defense to protect user identities, right? Thinking about this from a security perspective changes things. So I would highly, highly, highly urge you to revisit your password policy, especially for your privileged users, especially for your end users, your remote users, and ensure that you have enabled certain password complexities or restrictions that disallows users from setting predictable patterns as their passwords. All right. Disallow the, these are just a couple of attacks that I'm going to name, but with the complexities that you see on the screen, you can disallow dictionary-based password attacks, palindrome-based password attacks, pattern-based password attacks, so a huge chunk of brute force attacks. You can increase complexity if you would like. You can also choose to restrict characters from the username. You can choose to restrict characters from the old password, which disallows incremental password-based attacks, disallow old password itself, which is password history-based attack. You can work with length, which means when you enable passphrases, you make it difficult for a particular hacker or an intruder from easily breaking into passwords, right? And safeguarding your first layer of defense. So revisit your password policy. I'm not going to talk in detail about this. It's pretty self-explanatory. You can also choose to enforce it across your GNS-CP and your ADUC console, which is fantastic because when I log in as an administrator, right, even with the utmost privileges that I have, let me try to perform a password reset for a user. In the meantime, I'm going to disconnect my VPN. I am going to perform a reset password from the ADUC console, keying in a password that I know does not comply with the native, a password that does comply with the native password policy, but does not comply with the ADSelfService Plus password policy. And yes, I have an alert that says this password cannot be changed. And I am doing this from a server level as an administrator. All right, and this is the power of having a better password policy in place, the advantage of having a better password policy in place. And while you allow users to take care of their own password management chores, you can also, keep a tab on all that is happening in your end user's environment with the help of the user attempt audit report. So I have a huge list of actions that were performed today. I'm checking in from India. That's the Indian Standard Time. Everything from log on to reset to, identity verification is recorded right here. So you as an administrator can actually keep a tab on what's happening in your environment, keep a tab on identity verification failures, keep a tab on users whose passwords are going to expire or have already expired. And this will help you, be much secure and be aware and keep your users also intimidated. Keep your users also intimated and informed about their password expiry. Identify users whose passwords have already expired and ensure that you disable these users, revoke licenses, revoke permissions within the organization. Do not give way to stale idle user accounts or test accounts. And these are just a couple of tips that I wanted to pass on before I wrap up the session. Now it's time for questions. Please drop in all the questions that you have. I'm going to take time to answer all your questions. If not online, I'm going to take time to answer your questions offline. So stick with me if you have questions that are unanswered. In the meantime, I am also going to launch a poll for you to answer. If you are looking at any of these solutions listed on your screen, please let me know. Once again, very quickly going through all the questions that we have today. Mohammed, ADSelfService Plus supports password synchronization between your M365 and native AD. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. All right, Jeff, is the license based on users count or per domain? The license is based on users because permissions in ADSelfService Plus works based on users. And so licensing is user-based license. We do not work with domain-based license. Thank you, Jeff. All right, what SMS gateway or API does Manage Engine use for sending out SMS authentication code? I'm honestly going to jump back to the application to refer this, but I do believe that we also have custom SMS gateway that you can work with. Very, very quickly jumping back to the admin console right here. Oh, sorry about that. Jumping back to the admin console right here and product settings, mail and SMS settings. SMS settings. So yes, we have a custom SMS option. So pretty much any SMS gateway provider. Thank you so much for that question, Mohammed. All right. Okay, on the ADSelfService Plus, we can set any policy to avoid any password phrase like name of the company, user, first name, last name. Yes, Nubzir, yes, you can definitely do that. I'm also going to show you how you can do that. So jumping back to the configuration tab, you can choose to go to password policy enforcer, move to restrictions based on pattern, click on modify pattern, and you can pretty much input any list right here. So I have my organization's name, month, days of calendar, months of the week. You can also import the entire week password list that is common in your organization. Interestingly, we also integrate with Have I Been Pawned. So when I jump to product settings, integration settings, you can integrate with Have I Been Pawned, which means every time a user goes through a password reset or a change password operation, with Have I Been Pawned integration, the user will actually know, they will be notified if the particular password that they are setting has been compromised, has been, leaked, or is part of a weak password database. So you can also choose to simply click the Have I Been Pawned integration. Thank you. Can you go through the requirements to get native control of passwords or via ADUC? I am sorry, Warwick, but I don't think I understand the question. Native control of password via ADUC. Can you please elaborate on that question? Thank you. All right, do I have more unanswered questions? What about if most users and PC is not on-prem? What will be the best way to deploy on end users? So Jeff, I think I already answered this question. I'm going to take time to do that again. ADSelfService Plus is built on the native AD. So the user permissions that you delegate works based on your domain, your AD domain. So it works for users who are part of the native AD, who are on-prem. Thank you. Okay. One other question from Mohammed. My question is that there's no sync tool between on-prem and M365 and ADSelfService Plus. There is a password synchronization in ADSelfService Plus. If you want more insights on how to set it up, please email me. My email address is on your screen. Thank you so much, Mohammed. Thank you, Warwick. Okay, what is the best practices if ADSelfService Plus is installed on a DMZ? We have a guide for DMZ. Please write to me and I will share it with you. I guess your name has to be pronounced as Gunavan, but if it's wrong, please pardon me. We want to install Gina agents, but the server can't connect to users' computers because it's on a DMZ. So I'll tell you what the trouble will be. The trouble will not be because it's a DMZ or because you want Gina installation. The problem will be with synchronization of passwords back with your server, because that requires an established connection, right? So please write to me and I will pass on best practices for DMZ. I think that will give you more clarity on how you can achieve password resets. Thank you so much. All right, I believe I've answered most questions. Okay, what are the technical requirements or agents required to deploy ADSelfService Plus? I believe that's a question, Warwick. I'm going to take a very quick second to actually walk you through a guide on the website. So we have recommended best practices on the site. So when you hit download, I hope they haven't changed the position because it's been a while since I got here. Right. So system requirements, yes. We have details on what is required to work well with ADSelfService Plus. It's definitely something that I have not met because I'm working with the test dummy setup. So sometimes my system throws issues, but these are the recommended system settings, supported platforms, browsers, databases, All the information that you require for agent installation are all here. But if you do have more questions, you can always write to me. I'd be more than happy to help you. Thank you. Yes, licensing is based on number of users. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, regarding ADUC, yes, there is an agent installed. I will also walk you through that. So I'm working with a pre-configured setup because this is a webinar that comes with a time constraint and I'm already 10 minutes plus. But this is where we have the Gina Mac Linux installation. We also have the same agent that will help us synchronize passwords. So I have it installed in just one machine that I'm working with. And it's a simple select install. I'm not going to do that because these machines or computers don't exist anymore. But yes, that's how simple it is to install your agents. All right. Thank you. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for taking time to answer the poll. I am going to very quickly wrap up the session and I will be available online on mute to answer all your questions. If you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them. I'm going to take time to answer your questions offline. You can also write to me. Thank you, Warwick. All your questions were super interesting. Thank you. You can also choose to write to me at sharda@manageengine.com. We are pressed for time. I do not want to keep you on hold for longer, so I'm going to take time to answer all your questions offline. But if you do have any questions that I've missed to answer, something that you want to know that is not part of today's agenda or was not covered in today's session, a demonstration, a guide, anything that I can help you with, please feel free to drop in a message, drop in a mail to me. I'd be more than happy to assist you. If the application is throwing you issues or errors at any point of time, we have a dedicated team of superheroes. We have a dedicated team of experts who we call the support team. So please feel free to write to support@ADSelfServicePlus.com. We take our support queries very, very seriously. So I can assure you that your questions or your issues will be troubleshooted very, very soon. So yes, that is also something that I wanted to quickly pass on before I wrap up the session for the day. And I also want to let you know this. I wish, hope, and pray you, your friends, your family, your near and dear are blessed with great health and happiness. Please take great care of yourself. I wanted to put this thought across. We have so many people joining in from different parts of the world, and I wanted to, collectively pass on good vibes to every single one of you checking in from different parts of the world. Please take great care of yourself. Let's come out of this pandemic as happier, healthier individuals. And I'm looking forward to seeing every single one of you real soon in your country or mine. Until then, this is Sharda Murthy from the marketing team of Manage Engine signing off for today. Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience. Thank you so much for all your interaction, your questions, your comments, your suggestions are always welcome. And I'm so happy that I was able to be part of today's session and be the presenter for the day. But I also want to very quickly remind you that this is just session 1 of this particular series. We have 3 more fantastic presenters coming up through the upcoming weeks to talk about different solutions, to talk about AD Manager Plus, AD Audit Plus, and Log 360. So if you are interested in these applications, please feel free to log in. Looking forward to seeing you all in the upcoming sessions as well. Until then, stay blessed, stay happy. Thank you so much and namaste.